I've been putting off painting this dresser for a while because I'm afraid of messing it up. I actually just really haven't been able to decide on a color. So I put pieces off when I get paralysis analysis like this, but I figured it would be a good opportunity to show you pretty much my fail-proof method to painting furniture. This isn't a fail-proof method for loading furniture though. I recommend wearing better shoes. And maybe getting help. I think I paid $100 for this dresser if I remember correctly. And it's in really nice condition. It's got these beautiful dovetail drawers and adorable little pulls. I really try to source long 9-drawer dressers like this primarily because they sell really well and you can get higher profit for them. So a dresser like this should sell pretty easily around $700 refinished. I should mention that's local. If I were to list it on Etsy or something, I'm sure I could get more, but I just sell my stuff locally. This piece does have some damages and scuffs, but overall it should be easy to repair. Pretty quick project, hopefully. I think I left my other dolly in the storage unit. This piece is showing up very beige on camera, but it's actually yellow. Okay, I always start out by removing all the hardware, and I want to make sure I don't lose any of the parts because this hardware is gorgeous. And I know I definitely want to keep it. I feel like it's pretty obvious that solid wood furniture is the best, but one thing I look for when I'm sourcing is good tracks because they are all not created equally. This is a very well-made dresser. It has solid wood tracks, solid wood, everything, but the tracks are in very nice condition. One thing I hate is that when dressers have metal tracks on the bottom of the drawers that rub on the wood, that is a recipe for disaster, and usually they don't work very great. This might be kind of silly, but I always blow the dust out of the dresser instead of vacuuming it because it's just so fast. To clean my furniture, I always either use a TSP cleaning solution or Crud Cutter, because it's going to degrease it really good, and that's going to help your paint stick. Also, we're just going to get off any gunk that might possibly clog up our sandpaper. I've currently been obsessed with this little scrubber tool. It makes it so much easier. The one thing about painting that's different from refinishing is you have to be a lot more thorough when you're cleaning, because when you're stripping furniture down, you're taking all the finish off, so there will be literally no dirt left. But painting, you have to make sure it is super, super duper clean. So I recently discovered this wood filler that I actually like a lot, because it dries super fast and it doesn't shrink really hardly at all. So I like to tape off some of my repairs because it helps eliminate how much time I spend sanding. Ooh, this wasn't closed all the way. Oh, it's still good. This product smells very strongly of alcohol, but I think that's why it dries so fast. And you just want to peel up the tape before it dries. I like to overfill it a little bit so that when I sand it down, it can be perfectly flush. I primarily use this product on the big damages because a lot of the small nicks are going to sand out, and then we'll be able to see wherever I missed after we prime, and we'll go back over it with just the spot putty. If I had any really major damage that was structural, I would probably use a 2-part epoxy. But this is just basic veneer cracking. If I have a lot of curved surfaces to sand, I usually will grab my SurfPrep sander. If I have a lot of large flat surfaces to sand, I will usually grab my random orbital sander. So today I'm going to be using my SurfPrep. I am, however, not using the foam pad on the flat surfaces because I want them to be as flat as possible. Anything from 120 to 220 grit sandpaper should be fine for scuff sanding. Now for the curved surfaces, I'm going to use my foam pad. All right, it's a million years later, but now I am ready to wipe down all the dust with a damp cloth and start painting. Well, priming. So sometimes I tape everything off with plastic and sometimes I paint with the drawers in. And in this case, I feel like it's going to be easier to paint with the drawers in because I have all of these curves. And the tape doesn't, it's really difficult to tape these curved drawers off and not get a bunch of overspray. This piece is also very inset, so I know that it's not going to get a bunch of overspray inside of the dresser. Now, with the paint that I'm using, you don't have to prime, technically, but I have gotten in a habit of prime every time because it's better to just go ahead and take the guesswork out of it. Priming makes sure that your paint sticks, because sometimes laminate doesn't stick well, even with mineral paints. And sometimes you will paint and you will get bleed through, depending on the type of wood and the type of stain. And you won't really know until you go to seal it at the very end, and you will be very upset. So I find it's better to just go ahead and prime it and have that peace of mind. So I'm going to be painting with Melange Paints today, which is why I'm also going to be using the Melange Stain Blocking Primer. So So I did a poll on my Instagram story, and the color Ponchartrain, I hope I said that right, green won by a landslide. So I'm going to be using the Melange stain blocking primer. I always try to use the same brand primer as paint because I know that they've been tested together, and I've had issues in the past where I use one brand of primer and one brand of paint, and it didn't work. It didn't stick. Brain's not working. It's 5:30. I am trying to hurry up and get this primed before I end my day so I can come back tomorrow and go ahead and do my next coat. This tent pissed me off so bad the first time I got it because it took me forever to figure out. And then I just went and watched the stinking tutorial and I put it up in 2 minutes. So if you're anything like me and try to figure out things before watching the tutorial or reading the instructions, don't be. I'm actually super impressed that I was able to get this whole piece prepped today while filming. It is very important that you always filter your paint and primer, even if it's brand new. If you have even the tiniest clump, it's gonna clog up your sprayer and mess up the finish. So you can literally see the clumps in here. I will say this is probably one of the easiest beginner sprayers because there's only one little adjustment and you just turn it up. If you need more paint, turn it down if you need less paint. One coat of primer, done. I think that's all I'll need. So I'm gonna let this dry and wrap it up for the day. Come back tomorrow. I have this kind of weird crackling texture going on, which is why I came over here and sanded it smooth with 220 grit sandpaper, whereas everything else I just got sand with 400 grit in between coats. The other great thing about primer is that it's going to show you anywhere that you missed and you can go back and make touch-ups. Now anywhere that I can still see tiny little dings or texture after priming, I just come in with this spot putty and fill them in. It's kind of nice that it's this bright red color so I know where to come back and sand. Okay, now you do not want to skip filtering your paint. I don't know how many times I can say it. It will not be enough times. Oh my God, that color. The reason that I'm using 2 different sprayers is simply because I don't want to have to clean it out in between priming and then painting. I'm just going to clean them each out at the very end. Now I like to thin this paint down just a little bit using my Wagner because it helps it spray smoother, but not a lot. Just a tiny bit of water. If I had to guess, I would say it's like 10%. I typically keep my air power at about a 3 or a 4. This is the on and off for the air. And then this is going to be the material flow, so how much product it's spitting out. And this, I can't give you a set number. You're going to have to play with it, turn it all the way down, test it out on some cardboard, and slowly increase as you need more material to come out. To get the most even sheen, you want to make sure you're overlapping each pass by about 50%. This is really going to be the most important on the final coat. If you've ever noticed, sometimes pieces of furniture will have something that looks like stripes. That is actually called flashing, and it's a difference in the sheen. We do not want that. We want to make sure it's perfectly uniform. The reason why I love Melange 1 paint so much is because it sticks really well, it levels out really nicely, and it's super brushable for the beginner. So if this paint sprayer is a little bit intimidating to you, this paint brushes really easily for even somebody who's never painted before. I totally should have done the top first because now it's going to be hard to reach. The other great thing is that it has a built-in top coat, so if there's any exposed wood grain that you sanded through, it's going to seal it off and make sure that the sheen is uniform on the whole piece. The other thing I love about it is that it's so durable even without a top coat. It does take some time to cure, but I have sold so many pieces of furniture with this paint and have never had any complaints. Now I'm going to go in with a paintbrush and touch up all of the spots that I couldn't reach with my sprayer and label all of the drawers. Because even if they're the same size, sometimes they don't fit perfectly. Okay, even though Melange 1 is a washable surface, I could just go ahead and leave it, but my friend is a professional cabinet refinisher and told me that this top coat is like rock hard, even harder than polyacrylic, so I'm dying to give it a try. I'm just gonna mix it right in with my previous paint. It's super thin, so it should probably spray pretty well. Ooh, I just put a lot. That was probably overkill. I genuinely think that the secret to getting a good finish is sanding in between each and every coat. Okay, I have applied 3 coats of this General Finishes top coat, and we're gonna do a scratch test and see how durable it is. Damn. Pretty good. It definitely seems to pass the scratch test. You can still see it a little bit on an angle, but it hasn't fully cured, so I'm gonna give it to the benefit of the doubt. This is a dark color piece of furniture, and that's pretty normal of polyacrylic. I still have some left in my spray gun because I poured too much, so I'm gonna do one more coat. One other thing to note about this top coat is that they don't recommend using it on a bright white. This is actually a water-based polyurethane and not a polyacrylic. So it will slightly yellow over time. So I would recommend using it with dark colors. Or even like medium neutral colors, just it says not to use it with bright white. Now, one of the major pain points of spraying a top coat over a dark color is that you can get flashing if it's not super evenly sprayed. Basically, where when you look at it from an angle, you can see like fogginess. So to help avoid that, you want to make sure you mix your poly top coat really well. And when you're spraying, I'd like to go really heavy, making sure it's super covered on the last coat, and it will level out. But if you have some spots that aren't applied quite as heavily as the other spots, it's gonna show a difference in the sheen, and it's gonna show like tiger stripes. So on this last coat, I'm gonna be applying it pretty heavily. Crap, I accidentally applied it way too heavy. I am praying that this is gonna level out and hopefully not get cloudy. It's actually important to be careful not to apply it too thick as well, because you could get dripping. Look, I'm not perfect, okay? We're learning together. So now for the hardware, this painted white in the cracks looks a little bit too harsh against that Ponchartrain color. So I'm gonna do a gold rub and buff, because I'm not scraping that paint off. I tried the antique gold first and don't love the way it looks. The orange undertones of the antique gold really are kind of clashing with the teal color. So I ordered a new color rub and buff, new to me color rub and buff, and it's European gold. I wanted to show you the difference in colors in natural light. You can't tell as much on camera, but this is the antique gold. It has a much more orange undertone, which is beautiful. I use this all the time. And the European gold actually looks much more like a true patinaed brass. I definitely wish I had ordered it earlier. It might be just in my head, but these colors together are giving Little Mermaid, and these together look much nicer. It ended up leveling out really nicely, even though I kind of oversprayed it. Thank God, because I was nervous. So I don't think I got the sheen 100% perfect on this piece, but I'm gonna go ahead and move on, because I'd say it looks pretty good. And I don't want to keep layering and layering more and more coats of the top coat on, because then I risk it not curing. There's actually a couple reasons why I never skip this step. One is that it makes the drawers slide a lot smoother. The other is that it makes them look nicer. And it also gives me an opportunity to kind of come around and examine all of the drawers. Because if you take a look at this one, it's actually splitting. So I'm gonna go ahead and repair it. My staging setup isn't ideal as of right now, but this works. I don't like that it's kind of like a pocket corner, because ideally it would be a symmetrical image. But the seam, it's a little bit distracting. So I think it looks better as a corner rather than having a third seam that isn't caught. I don't know if what I'm saying even makes sense. I really need to up my staging decor, but it's just so expensive, and I try to thrift things. I've been liking using empty frames simply because they don't show reflections. Really don't like setting stuff on my furniture. for staging, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Gotta love the good old eyeball method. It looks kind of floating, but I figure people on the internet will tell me if it looks bad, and then I can fix it next time. I bought this dresser for $100 and I plan to sell it for $650, which should be a pretty quick sale considering that I did a very similar one and it sold for $750 like that. Something about this color, I'm telling you. So all in all, I think it took me about 3 days of labor, but that is with stopping and setting up a tripod and checking my audio and all the things. So I think you could definitely do a flip like this in 2 days, which is a pretty good profit. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you stick around because I plan to do some thrift with me videos in the future. If you haven't noticed, I've been using the same lamp like every video. So yeah, hopefully I can find some cool vintage stuff to stage my furniture with.